Ooh, I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. Hopefully the audio works. Hello, hello, hello. Gotta wait for somebody to show up and let me know if the audio is working. This is Satan, gay autistic Satan, chatting from hell. Come and chat. Hey, Daniel Barry. Can you hear me? Is my audio working? You are the first and only one here right now. Happy Tuesday. It is Tuesday, isn't it? Oh, thanks, Kane. And hi, good to see you. Great, super. All right, we got us a chat going, and a stream, and a panel. All that stuff. So come on up if you want. And yeah, listen to Kane. She's a very wise person. Like, subscribe, share. Most of all, share, because that's what helps get the subscribes. Enjoy the fire. I always do. Hopefully other people will as well, but at least I know I will. Well, have a good night. It was good seeing you, and I hope I see you again. All right, let's see what is. I haven't checked the news yet, but there's some local news in my town, or like one town over, actually. There was like a police stop. This female police officer stopped this car, and as she was stopping him, he grabbed her and pulled her into the car and grabbed her gun, and shots were fired, and then the car caught on fire. And so all this traffic is stopped because there's this burning car and the guy is dead. So it's like something out of an action movie that you see, but it happened right here locally. Now let's go to the world, see what's happening there. I've kind of been out and about today, so I haven't really been in front of the computer. Oh, Lord. There's fire. Oh, my God. You're not going to believe this. Ooh, this is some... this is some mystical coincidence here. I pull up the news, Google News, and the very top headline is the California fires, and there's a giant picture of a car on fire. After I just told the story about the local car incident. Palisades fire. Wow, in LA? How do they get so close to the city? I didn't even know there were forests down in LA. And then a bunch of Trump gossip. So when you see that kind of gossip, that means there's not really any news, which is good. No random acts of violence other than the local car stop, which is pretty much over now. And some Elon gossip. So you know what this tells me? This tells me that Trump is about to take office. And it is hell. It can be hell. It could be your hell. It's many people's hell. Believe me. But it's my little corner of hell. The hell that is YouTube. And the hell that is the Panelverse. So welcome to my hell. Hopefully we'll get some guest up for a little fireside chat from it. If not, I'll just chat a bit and then call it a night. It does look like hell. We have our demon trolls. Here's one now. We welcome Christians. I'm a Christian Satanist, actually. So welcome. We have many Christians here. In fact, there's probably more Christians hang out here than anywhere else I see them. We're very Christian friendly. Um, I was kind of going through the news, but it was less news today and more gossip. It means that no, not that I have an identity crisis. I I know very well who I am, as much as anybody can know themselves. Um, I use both. I use Christ and Satan. I think they complement each other. I'm actually non-theistic. I don't believe in either of them as actual supernatural entities. They're just archetypes for me, and I see value in both. And Satan, the figure of Satan himself, is part of the Christian mythology. And in fact, the IRS here in the United States has Satanism listed in their official records as a Christian denomination. So the IRS is pretty sharp. They knew where to put it. Yeah, exactly, effigy. Satan is a Christian. He is a figure from the Christian mythos. Um, St. Paul himself did a little bit to develop him, and then really Augustine is where he got his full development as the fallen angel, um, the tempter. Because in the Bible, Satan is not the serpent in the garden at all. That came after with Augustine and beyond, and then of course John Milton, Paradise Lost, captured Satan for us once and for all. Um, well, he's just a character. I don't know that I respect him. Respect him. I admire him. I draw inspiration from him. So I guess there's a bit of respect in that. Did you really? Effigy, are you serious? Because I was going to do a stream on the history of Satan. Maybe maybe you can contribute. Yeah, kind of, sort of, kind of that, Cassandra. Not lost. What song is that from? It's it's vaguely familiar. Oh, you mean the actual Satan, like the not literary Satan, but people who really believe in demons. And so I wish demons were real. My sex life would be a lot more active if I could pull out an incubus when I need them. I don't work with Set. For me, it's pretty much Satan, the Satan from Paradise Lost, and the Romantics, but also Baphomet. And I like Baphomet. I like the Baphomet. I love my Baph, but that's not actually the classical image of Satan. Satan was more human. He was a fallen angel, but he was like in human form. He was a hero, the last classical hero, in fact. And so this goat figure with the horns and all that is Eliphas Levi from the occult. That developed from the occult tradition. But I just think the image is cool. So when I think of Satan, that's the one I have in my mind. But that's definitely not the one that Milton was creating in Paradise Lost. Depends. Define loss. Technically, he lost the war in heaven. So technically, yes, you're right. But it's kind of aren't we all losers in a way? Not like there could only be a few people sitting at the very top, and so it's the strength in loss, the victory and defeat, et cetera, that Satan represents. So it's how to be a loser with style and grace and strength, and how to turn your loss into personal victory. Better to reign in hell than serve in heaven. Who wants to be a winner in heaven under God anyway? When you can be a loser in your own kingdom, that's more of a win to me than being successful in an existing hierarchy. Have you? I think a lot of us have, and that's you bring up another good point. Satan and Satanism and hell can represent the traumas that we go through as well in a form of post-traumatic growth. In fact, when I was younger, I had this idea of I thought it would be cool to have a bar or a club called Hell and Back. And people could say, "Where are you going tonight?" And you could say, "I'm going to Hell and Back," because that would be the name of the club. And there was another one I thought of opening called the Philosopher's Stone. Um, I don't believe in any kind of supernatural or metaphysical deity at all. Christ is king, though. I'll tell you that. I do believe that he can be a little bit of a daddy figure, like hippie daddy, maybe. But I think Satan's more my type of daddy. Oh, I just noticed your name too, a kid that loves God. Well, it's interesting how the stream draws a lot of Christians when I first started up because it's the vertical algorithm. But I bet maybe because of the name, the algorithm feeds it to people that it thinks wants this content, which may be the religious people. You too, Cassandra. Uh, Thank you for stopping by. Good chatting with you and hearing from you. And I bet you have a lot of strength too if you've been through hell and back. So keep that going. It helps all of us. All right, let me look at some tweets. Maybe see. It's been a while since I went over tweets. See if there's any I can read that don't involve sharing the screen. Oh, yeah. There's remind me tomorrow, or maybe Thursday, because Joe and I have our show tomorrow. Um, there's a video I want to show about women that came across my feed. And hang on, Oh, I forgot to post this on social media. So let me do that real quick so people know I'm out. Uh, 1 second. Come on. All right, there we go. I respect you. Yeah, you too, kid that loves God. Yeah, I get it. I totally understand. I don't expect a lot of agreement with this. I'm well aware. I'm, it's a minority religion for sure, but at least we can respect each other as people and as citizens of the same planet, if not the same country, and respect the freedom to choose our own religions. In fact, next time I do that Northrop Frye essay, we're going to get into the religious part of the myth of concern and take a closer look at Christianity. And Christianity is as an example of how a myth of concern works because it's our dominant myth of concern in Western culture. I'd say maybe secular democracy But for a lot of people, Christianity still, and the influence and effect of Christianity, I think, is still with us as much as the democratic myth is. Marxism, I don't think, is as strong, especially in the United States, and I intend to do my part to keep it that way. Wow, that's interesting. As I am saying this, I'm going through my Twitter feed, and there's an entire thread on modern Christianity from local distance that I want to share once I get back to my computer show. I mean, my laptop show. I do vertical streams in the evening, but every day I'm live 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central on the laptop, and I'm able to do more. I'm able to share screens, show videos, etc. In the evening, I just stream from my phone, so I'm a little more limited. But when I do get back to the laptop show, I have that thread on Christianity, and I have one on nature, the influence of nature on us, our behavior, behavioral genetics, and one on culture and the influence of culture. And they all happen to just cluster together in the same few days. All right, I think that's all I got on Twitter. That's interesting. I just shared it on Twitter, and these little porno bots all of a sudden are swarming around it. Be gone, Satan, for it is written, you shall worship the Lord your God, and him only shall you serve. Ha ha ha. Well, not me. I used to read Bible passages on here. Actually, I haven't done that in a while. If anybody knows a good parable, the parables is what I was interested in and how they apply to YouTube. So if anybody knows a good parable, I could read one tonight. Not Laz, your projection is really stunning, I have to say. It's hopefully there's a psychology student or two out there that needs a good case study in projection. They're welcome to use my stream. Yeah, please pray for me. In fact, I'm actually looking for work right now. I've decided to take a job for extra income to supplement my work here, and so if anything that helps, if you want to pray for that, um, it can't hurt. If look, whatever my goals are, if people want to pray and that helps it just a little bit, I'm not going to turn that down. Thank you, in fact. Uh, Most Christians I know, I admire Christians because I think they're trying to make the world a better place, and I think they're trying to be better people. And I admire that. They're not just existing, they're trying to go beyond just being here. I don't need Marxism. Marxism is the biggest barrier to my finding employment right now because of all the woke shit. Marxism has me categorized in the oppressor category, and nobody likes to see the oppressor succeed. Nobody's going to give the oppressor an advantage. Nobody's going to give the oppressor a leg up or any kind of handout. I have to fight, and scrape, and claw and get that shit all on my own. And no matter how much I tell them I'm an ethnic minority, no matter how much I tell them I am not neurotypical. I hate to use the word disability, but that's the word they like to hear. So I am a disabled minority. Um, no matter how much I tell them that I'm gay, I am not a straight white male. I'm not even a white male. Oh, it's all that woke stuff, kid. The everything's oppression and white supremacy and patriarchy, and you have to advance minority. Like people get hired because of their minority status, not necessarily because of their merit or skill set or competency. Fortunately, I'm very good at what I do, and I bring a lot to a job. So I think even with the DEI stuff, I'm only really interested in working for employers that want a good employee, and that's the only thing they care about and focus on. So as long as I look for that, I'm a match. Yes, you are correct, Effigy. It's wokeness is technically not Marxism. It has some Marxist elements to it, and it repurposed some of the features of Marxism, but I wouldn't even say it's a direct ideological descendant of Marxism. I'm only calling it Marxism because in the Northrop Frye essay, he he calls that modern it's a revolutionary myth for sure, and the one Frye talks about is actual Marxism, and so that's why I just call it Marxism. But it's the modern version of whatever Marxism, whatever myth Marxism was trying to, or whatever like role culturally that the myth of Marxism was trying to fill back in its time. Yeah, and technically, yeah, it's funny you say append. Yes, I do know what I'm talking about. I've done a ton of streams on this, not Laza. You've been there for a lot of them. Appendage is a good word for it because it kind of is a Frankenstein monster. It's a because it's descended from past revolutionary myths of concern, or radical revolutionary myths of concern. Because remember, all of the modern myths of concern in our age, since at least Judaism, are revolutionary myths of concern. So it's descended from pre-existing radical myths of concern, but it's its own version. So it draws elements from the past one, but it synthesizes them into a modern form. My job is I'm a peer counselor. So my background is mental health. I've also done a little bit of special education, but right now I'm looking for anything: customer service, office work, the fry station at McDonald's, which McDonald's ghosted me. I haven't heard from them since I applied. Yes, it is. It's absolutely is, and I've covered that in North. In fact, I think it was yesterday. I covered how Marxism tries to rationalize itself as a science, but when you subject it to an actual scientific critique, it attempts to undermine the very objectivity that is used by science by claiming that true objectivity is not even possible. So that's not a scientific stance. That's a social mythological stance. I don't even know what historical materialism is. Are you talking about cultural? What is it? Is it cultural materialism? That material, it's the material means and circumstances that shape our society. Like everything's downstream from the material. um, Kid God, I would not know. I don't have empirical experience with that whatsoever. Never crossed my mind, actually. Um, why is it something you've tried? Yeah, and Marxism was based on a class theory that really didn't bear itself out, at least since World War II. Um, Most workers in the modern world don't feel oppressed. Most of them are fine with a living wage and having their labor exploited. So all the psychological conditions and drives and that Marx posited would lead to certain outcome didn't actually happen. So Marx's psychology of the worker to me was off because none of that shit happened. Most people, if you give them a decent job, they're going to be happy. And I think this fantasy of flattening hierarchies is exactly that. You're not ever going to get a society of Homo sapiens, which is a primate species, with no hierarchy. What's a labor revolution? I didn't know you were such a Marxist either, Effigy, although it shouldn't surprise me. And Marxism really is more of a European import anyway. It's not really an American ideology. Labor becoming part of politics on a party. I don't even know what that means. I do know that growing up, the Democrats were more the party of the working class, and the Republicans were like the party of big business. That seems to have shifted. I don't know that there is a party of the working class at all anymore, but if there is one, um, it seems to be the Republicans, unless you're brown, queer, and all the other minorities. Then the Democrats might, but that's not class based, that's identity based. I think that's what happened. The Democrats shifted from working class to identity based classes. I still remember Hillary's deplorables comment. And even before that, I never liked Hillary to begin with, but the deplorable comment really turned me off of her. But even before that, I remember when was she running for senator? It seemed like it was about the time Obama was campaigning. And Hillary did an interview and she said something like, we've been on the road and we've been very busy. And a lot of times we even have to eat pizza, like delivery pizza, that they don't even have time to eat proper food. And I thought that was so fucking classist of her. That just really rubbed me even back then. That was like the late aughts. Because pizza for us growing up was a treat. Like my God, if we could get a pizza delivered or go out for pizza, that wasn't like low class food. That was better than the food we were normally getting at home. The well, as a Satanist whose fundamental value is anti-authoritarianism, I find much more authoritarianism on the left right now than the right. Oh, and let me tell you what else I discovered today. I'm an enlightened centrist, a radically enlightened centrist. So I support whatever I support. I have my own set of values, and whichever politicians represent and support those values are the ones who get my vote. I vote a mixed ticket, but lately it's been leaning Republican. Um, let's see. They were working in their hotels and couldn't go out and sit down. Yeah, but it was the way she said it. It was the way she said it. So it could have meant all of that, but the way she said it, and then coupled with her deplorables comment. I'm just pointing out that it didn't even take the deplorable comment for me to get a sense that Hillary Clinton herself had some classism to her. Um, yeah, that's exactly what that means. Not laws. You're very sharp. You're light years ahead of me. Brilliant insight. That's exactly what I said. So let me tell you what else I found today. I was waiting for the bus, and right across the street from the bus stop is the county Republican headquarters. And I tried to stop by on my way back, but they were already closed. So it's just a few blocks from my house. So I'm going to walk down there one day this week or next week and check them out, see what they have to offer, maybe volunteer. I'm just excited that they even have an in person office because everything seemed like it was online in Facebook groups for a while. So I got all excited. Yeah, see, here's some more of that projection. But I mean, keep it coming. It's a natural resource around here. Somebody might find some value in it. It's got to be good for something. Entertainment, pity, something. All right, let's see. Well, that's all the tweets I have. We'll see if we get some a panelist or two. If not, oh, half an hour. That's not too bad. Tomorrow, Joe and I are gonna do our Nexus. It should be at the same time. I think I'll be back in time. But he has. I think we're gonna talk about straight men. He has some topic that's male related from a heteronormative point of view. Well, I don't. You think they think they're centrist? I think they would admit that they're quite on the left. No, that's you. That's you making it into that code word or reading is that code in that code word. But I definitely am not using it to mean corporatism. You talking about the leftists that you just listed? Love wars for economic hegemony. That's even that's a big assumption. I'm even going to have to defend them. A, you don't know that they love wars, and B, even if they do, you don't know why they love them. This is all you sitting behind your laptop like you always do, making inferences and speculating what's in people's heads and telling stories to yourself. This is mythologizing. This is all examples of what I've been talking about. It's none of it is coming from any kind of empirical perspective of trying to understand the world as it is. Yeah, words have meanings. You have that right. And it's important to know how the people you're communicating with are using particular words. That's why, and like 90, probably over 90%, 95 even percent of the philosophy that I've done in my life, when I find myself talking philosophy with people, is semantics. Like once you clear out the what do you mean by this word, that word, and what like how people are using certain words. Once you sift through all that and clear that away, there's almost never an actual disagreement on the argument itself, or if there is, it's because people hold completely opposite values or opinions about something. But most of the time, it's not even that. It's just semantic noise that you have to sift through. Hey, freak, what's up? I heard you want to fight. Freak wants to meet on the play. He wants to meet behind the 7-Eleven after school and battle it out. Let's see the source. You want to do it now? Yeah, I mean, I could do it. What better place than hell? I have the home turf advantage, home court advantage. And but you know what I didn't do yet, because you said something about it was based on my opening quote, and I don't remember what the quote actually was, and I didn't go back and watch it yet to see what the exact thing I said that you're basing this on. Oh, I didn't put the link. Let me grab it. Hang on. Here, I'll do it from. And if you want, you can share it in some discords or your social media if we're going to have it out. He wants to have the, I think, Christianity versus science debate. Oh, when it's subjected to critical or rational inquiry, or where the myth of freedom begins to turn itself on the myth of concern. Oh, okay. I think I see what's happening now. Yeah, I mean, I'm not. I don't think you can destroy a worldview. I think people are going to mythologize regardless. I don't think you can remove that from people any more than you can remove the like thinking from people. The most you can do is align it more with probability and correspondent reality, but people resist even that. I think it was Proust that said, because we see this in our romantic lives. He said, "Love is a striking example of how little reality means to us." So I think we're only interested in reality to the extent that we have to be. But outside of that, we're more interested in what we want, our desire, what we want, what we envision, what we want to be true, not necessarily what is true. Yeah, I think most people, believe it or not, at least in my part of the West, America, I think they do a decent job. Like maybe in some of the more militant countries where religion has more of a dominant hold, maybe there's less coexistence. But in modern democratic liberal society, because if you remember, one of the values of the myth of freedom was this tolerance for dissent and dissenting opinions and just tolerance in general. And so the more closed, I touched a little bit on closed and open myths, and I'm going to talk more about that later. But the more closed a myth becomes, the less tolerant to outside influences or alternative myths it is. But the more open a myth is, the more tolerant of other myths it becomes. Yes, I think you're right, and I think Freud would agree with you as well. The ego defenses, because that's part of what the ego is to begin with. It defends against the id and all of the drives and unconscious impulses and all of the things about ourselves that we can't accept. That's why we see them in other people and not ourselves. But that's the projection. That's why we have strong reactions to things in other people that are very close to how we'd react if we would allow them to become conscious in our own mind. We play it out through other people. Yeah, sometimes it can be like to have your worldview ripped out, but like with me, it was kind of just a very smooth process, like not even gradually. It happened very quickly, and I shifted from the Catholic worldview to the scientific worldview. Just I don't know, within weeks or months of studying science. Hey, tough guy, what's up? Um, and it didn't cause me any struggle or pain, or like I didn't have to rebuild or anything. It was kind of like when you learn that there's no Santa Claus. There's that little bit of, well, for me, in fact, learning there was no Santa Claus was way more traumatic than realizing that there was no God. I made that transition pretty easily. The Santa Claus thing was a little rougher for me as a kid. But there's that initial like disorientation a little bit. I guess it depends on how the transition happens. But the only reason I was believing in the Catholicism in the first place was because I thought it was true. I didn't want to believe something that was false. I wanted to believe something that was true. And then so once this other worldview seemed more true, more correspondent to reality, because that was my motivation for adopting the Catholic worldview, it was very easy to shift because I didn't shift the core value of truth. I just replaced one version of what at the time I thought was true with another version that seemed to be closer to the truth. And we do that all the time. There are things that we think is true, and then we learn more facts, and then we shift it around to what we learn is actually true. And so it was more that like that thread of truth still connected all of my, because I'm a rationalist, and that's what I do even today as an adult. I have the beliefs that I have, and when I have a reason to discard them and adopt new beliefs based on their truth value, then I do so. And that's what science does as well. So I was kind of already in the scientific mindset. I just didn't have anything to apply it to as a kid other than the Catholic worldview until actual science class gave me something to expand it to. Um, if you're saying you want to come up, the link should be pinned, and I just dropped it too. It's if you scroll up, it's should be up there. And I think the freak might come on as well. He wants to argue religion, and a tough guy. I know you're a Christian as well, I believe. So y'all are welcome to hop up. That's good advice for you, not loss. Strive for the superego. Okay, hang on. Oh, I didn't see you back there. Da da da.
My man. What's up, Jeff?
How you doing?
How you doing? Hey, okay, so since C19, what exactly about science do you actually believe is a good foundation to sink your feet into and say, I'm an immovable object?
Girl. C19's not going to alter my grounding in science, if that's what you were trying to do. Why did it change yours, or were you ever? Did you ever adopt any kind of scientific view of things?
Oh, I was a science guy. I still am a science guy. I believe in science. It's just that when C19 was floating around and everything, the medical side of science is basically all up in the air, from a trust, actual knowledge, actual like pygmy, what do you call it? Guinea pig type of, quote unquote facts. It seems like it's all just one big drug industry to me at this point.
Well, yeah, because that's I would say that's mythologizing. because that's the story that you've built around this fact. But all of medical science didn't suddenly stop working because of something that happened in 2020 with this one virus. Like medicine still works. Most things that doctors prescribe work for whatever reason they're prescribing. The human body still works like we've always understood it to work, etc. So it didn't upend the entire field of medical science. All that stuff still more or less works. And remember, science is an accumulating body of knowledge. So we're constantly updating our scientific knowledge as we learn more information through experimentation.
All right. So if I agree that I mythologize, then you have to agree that you just mythologized as well, because you said it. So it's kind of always changing. But let me go back to something before that. You know, they do prescribe drugs, and thank God, drugs work. I'm on board with pharmaceuticals. Like, I know that drugs work because many reasons. They work. The molecular bonds uh, that they are able to manipulate through pharmaceuticals are very effective, and they work right away, kind of a thing, as opposed to, say, like prayer or something that aren't drugs. Okay. That being said, we had the whole medical industry, whatever you want to call it, basically questioning themselves ever since then, like mask, no mask. As a real easy example, the food triangle, is a thing now. Like, they lied to us in the 50s or 60s or whenever that thing came out. It's all wrong. The vegan, non-vegan, the meat, the no meat, the coffee, the no coffee, constantly reversing their stance on whatever. And so the trust level that most people have for even their regular physician is as low as it's ever been at this point in time. So that's only one aspect of science. I realize that, but it's just
Well,
the
can I
easiest
can
thing
I
that I can
address
point
that
out.
real quick? Because I wouldn't even call that science. The trust you're talking about is trust in institutions, but science itself is just a method and a technique. And so all the stuff you're describing is something other than science. Those are communications from certain institutions, and so you stop trusting those particular institutions that told you this information. But that the information itself is not science.
Well,
So
that's the
science still
constant.
worked. The scientific, just like COVID didn't invalidate chemistry and molecular biology and all the other stuff we developed before that. The food pyramid and whether to mask or not didn't invalidate how science works. It doesn't mean the scientific method still doesn't work. It didn't stop doing the thing that it was good at doing, that it was designed to do, etc. So you have to separate humans that are telling you things, are institutions, representatives of institutions that are telling you, from actual science and scientists doing science.
Okay. Well, you also have all those institutions that we're supposed to, have trust and faith in, telling us that they are the science, that specific people are saying they are the science. And if you don't believe him, then you don't believe in science. But that's just one little, political
Yeah,
aspect of it. But as
just
far
ignore
as
those
the
people, because
medical,
people that understand science don't mistake those people for science. They understand what science actually is, and it's not an institution telling you things. So people that think that that's science need some scientific literacy themselves.
probably, but you see, science is incorporated by many different aspects of human life and stuff like that. So you have to me, the medical side of science, and the medical field, the medical profession has been basically shaken down to its core as to what is actually truth and real and foundational that they can stand on, other than the periodic table at this point. They don't
Well,
know.
well, you
They
just
just don't
agreed.
know.
You just agreed that like medicine still work and stuff. I wouldn't say shake it to its core.
Well, shake it down to chemical and the periodic table, which is molecular structure and formation and whatnot. So yeah, pharmaceuticals work. Other than that, they don't really know what the hell's going on. It seems to me.
Well, it doesn't seem like that to me. It seems like doctors pretty much still know how to do medicine.
I don't know. Are
What
you sure
what
about
what
that?
what do you have doubts about now that you didn't before? As like
Well,
unrelated to this one virus, like other
unrelated to
medical
the
could
virus.
like
Yeah,
you doubt that they know anything about anything now?
I doubt that they
Because
are
they still seem
sure.
to be able to treat a lot of illnesses like they have in the past.
Yeah, I would. Your basic stuff that comes down the pike or whatever, they probably do get it right. But I would say that if you're a doctor right now and you were practicing during C-19 and you were being told to, this one day, this the other day, this the next day, and they were all not in agreement. And then you have the blood specialist telling you one thing, and then you have the virologist telling you another thing, and you're trying to shake it all out and shake it all down and break it all into the most base, common denominator. There was no common denominator that they could actually stand on. So it was just a matter of who are they going to sell out to be on the right side of not getting sued. And that's where I feel that they probably still are at this point. Do you trust your doctor?
Uh, yeah, until I have a reason not to. Most doctors that I've been to haven't given me a reason not to. They haven't told me anything that didn't turn out to be the case. They they
Yeah.
they they examine the condition, they give their diagnosis, which is their opinion of what might be going on in my body, and it usually turns out to be that thing, and they prescribe a certain course of treatment that usually alleviates the condition. So
Yeah, that's true. Even most of the time you go in, it's a thing, antibiotics a week later and you're cleared up or whatever, and everything's good. But overall, from the, excuse me, top down for like this whole situation with the C-19, you had the political side of science, of the medical field and science at odds end because we didn't always get the science, even though they said it was science. So, just based on the scientific worldview of reality, you have to have a crack or a ding in your armor because of that.
well, I'll give you even better ammunition than C-19. Science has been, let's say, put into question decades before this by the scientists and philosophers themselves, by people studying quantum physics, by Thomas Kuhn, his book on the structure of scientific revolutions, Immanuel Kant, philosophically, David Hume. So there have been very very difficult to challenge critiques of science in the past. So science is very aware of its limitations as a result of these critiques. And so what you're trying to say about COVID has been done better in the past by better thinkers than the modern people involved with COVID. But that doesn't mean within the domain that science does function in that it's not really good at what it does and really effective. It
Yeah, I
just means
agree.
that there's limitation because it's a human activity. We have human brains. We're limited by our humanness on how much we can penetrate into the mysteries of the universe right now. But within those limitations, we've created some amazing technology and we've transformed the world through our own efforts, just based on the understanding of it that science was able to give us up to now.
Oh yeah, I think we need science. I love science. I love I was a next generation guy. I loved Star Trek and all science was the only class that I actually passed because I wasn't bored to death.
What
So
was your
anyway,
favorite science?
my favorite science was actually anatomy and physiology. but I like
Oh,
physical
nice.
science. Now I like I don't know it probably is, but like I love physics. I think a lot of the neo physics nowadays is really kind of bunk, but I still like exploring that kind of stuff. It challenges the mind. It causes the mind to be creative in its thinking. I like all science. I will say that in terms of science as a whole, there are what do they call it? Uh, Different sects or factions or segments of science that are contradictory to one another. Say you have entropy, which is the quote unquote evolution of genetic evolution, and then you have like the geology, which is the study of rock formation and characteristics of the earth. And one would say that life is this many years old, and the other is going to say, well, it's many more millions of years old, and those two are almost in direct contradiction of each other. So one of them can't be completely right, and one of them can't be completely wrong. Of course, those are two different, biological versus like environmental. But you can see, like the geologist is going to say that the Earth is 4 billion years old, and really like stand on that foundation forever. Whereas the entropy, because of the way that it is, uh, you can only have so many random neutral mutations. It's got a cap to it. It can only be so many years old.
I'm not familiar with what you're talking about. I I think most scientists agree on the age of the Earth.
Well, if you look at like the geological uh, part of it, yes. But in entropy, what you have are it's a way of explaining kind of like adaptation or even the full blown species jumping evolution, where the quote unquote neutral, which I don't know how anything could be neutral and actually adapt, you would have to actually have a will to or a need to adapt. So that couldn't be neutral. That would be a need or a will. But you have these quote unquote neutral mutations that cause genetic kind of upgrades so that species or whatever could thrive in their environment.
You talking about like
But
random mutations and natural
ran-
selection?
yeah, but they call them neutral mutations, not random.
Well, okay, but
And
I mean they are
the thing
random, or
is,
they seem to be random,
they seem to be
and then
random,
some
but
survive and some don't. The ones that are most adapted to their environment survive.
right. But apparently that there could only be so many of those within a genome, meaning that they're eventually capped. So even that explanation or that fact being part of the theory, well, that's the exact opposite of evolution. If you're evolving, how can you be capped? So there's problems within certain fields, and certain fields do contradict each other. So that alone is just to say that there are things in science that are just as uh, questionable as, say, believing in Jesus Christ.
Um, the problem with the Jesus Christ thing, if you're I'm actually going to touch on this next time I take up that essay, because we're going to dive directly into the Christianity part as a myth. Um, you can't test Jesus Christ. Like science, there's nothing science can do to prove or invalidate Jesus Christ whatsoever, because it's that you can't. It's not observable. It's not testable. You can't show me Jesus Christ, and where I can see it too. Um, so it's kind of out of the realm of science to begin with. It's in this other world of mythology that I keep talking about. It's not something that science that could even subject itself to science. Jesus Christ is mostly a character from stories, from a text. Outside of that, there's very little we could even point to and observe about Jesus Christ. We find him within this collection of stories that we call the Bible. Animated, I don't know how we would prove that kind of negative.
Are you familiar with like de-germination? Go ahead.
Of plants, like of seeds?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're going to say
I've
something else.
germinated before. We used to germinate plants in school.
Okay, so you know that we don't have the full explanation of germination, or would you disagree?
I don't know enough about it. I know I've germinated, like it worked when I did it. I remember there was even a cereal that had these little germination kits as the cereal prize. It had these little seeds and these little plastic things that you put dirt in, and you could grow little plant shoots from these seeds. I thought it was the coolest cereal toy. So,
Nice.
like the germinating that I've done worked.
Yeah, and it does work. We know what it takes to have seeds germinate, and what the environment that is required in order for that to happen. But I could provide you evidence that of God based on germination, and this is my best evidence that I could give you. So I'm not going to fuck around and go through the whole thing. I'm just going to give you my whole shooting match in one crop. Okay. So until science can fully explain what's going on with germination, the burden of proof is on the non-believers because God called his shot. And I'm going to post the scripture in the chat as soon as I pull it up here.
Okay.
So based on that, I'll just ask you the question. Do you think that you grew the seed, or do you think that God grew the seed?
I think the seed grew. Like it depends on what you mean by grow. I planted the seed. So in that sense, I grew the seed. I was responsible for the seed growing. Otherwise, it would not have. But I didn't actually do anything inside of the seed itself to make it grow. That was nature. But it sounds like you're headed toward the God of the gap arguments, which is science doesn't know everything. And so the unknown parts of science, people fill in with a hypothesis called God. But science itself just leaves that as an unknown until it has information it can work with to test it. It's not going to assume a hypothesis that it can't test. So science is very aware of gaps in its knowledge. But it doesn't substitute God as a hypothesis by default just because of that. It's fine with the gaps until it has a way to see into those gaps and study them more.
Okay, but you've got a problem now because God called his shot.
Is it you who makes it grow, or we that grow? That verse. What is Q, by the way? Is that the Gospel of Q?
No, that's the Quran.
Oh, okay. So this is Allah.
It's him.
Allah.
It's all him.
I don't know. Even in the Bible, he's not the same person. From book to book from testament to testament, and then in the Quran, he's even he's even another person. Because that's what happens with literary characters that are created by different authors and artists and humans among the ages. So that's an interesting question. Is it you who makes it grow, or are we the grower? But it doesn't prove anything in the scientific sense of proving something.
Okay, but until science proves it, then he called his shot. So the burden of proof is on you. Here's where
until science proves it, it remains an unknown. And we talked about how when we're faced with an unknown, there's a tendency to mythologize and to create something outside of yourself I mean, create something from yourself to explain that unknown, and you
1,500
become
years ago, before science
what you
remained,
create.
all you have to do
So
is
the
fully explain
scientific answer is
germination,
we
and
don't
you get
know, and
God.
then you are free at that point to fill in with whatever mythological answer you want, or to say it another way, to tell yourself whatever story you want, or to hypothesize, like substitute any hypothesis you want. But science is only interested in the ones you can test. So if you substitute a hypothesis that's not testable, then it's not in the realm of science anymore. It's in the realm of mythology or storytelling. Let's see. Fatty says, "Who watered it and nurtured it
Except
and played it, Bob?"
that this was written 1,500 years. He proved that God's word is false. Is fully explained
Well,
germination.
it
And
we're getting into those different types of truth. Like, what are you talking
when
about by false? Because the type of truth that science is concerned with is not the type that shows up in literature and art and books like the Bible. So to say God's word is true, it's true in one sense, but it's not true in the scientific sense.
all science has to do is fully explain germination, and God is dead. That's all. It's
Well,
that simple.
just wait around, because I'm sure my money's on science. I'm sure at some point they will fully explain germination. So if that's all it takes to kill God, then I don't have a lot of hope for his survival.
You mentioned all the different names and the different ways that God is, addressed in the Bible and in the Quran and stuff, which I agree. We even see the Lord, the angel of the Lord, praying to God. So that's like, how does that happen? We don't, fully understand what's going on, but that is because Zechariah 14:9 has not happened yet.
And it's less about the different names than the fact that the characters of Yahweh, of God the Father, of Allah, even within the Old Testament, you could see different changes in Yahweh. It's fundamental changes in character and personality from book to book. So not even name, not even just, it's like this stable entity that people are just using different names for. The entity itself, the character, is palpably different depending on which part of the book you're reading or which book you're reading.
That's true. And then you have the solidifying of who he is by the glorification of Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that sounds like myth to me, like a lot of mythologizing.
I mean, in other words, whenever God shows up or wants to reveal himself, it'll be as Jesus Christ. It won't be any other parts of like his names.
What about the dove, the bird, the Holy Spirit, and the tongues of flame and the rattlesnakes?
Right. So those all happen. Well, the if you're talking about like Pentecost, those all happened because of Jesus Christ, and his causing of that, or his name being invoked and causing of that. He's the one that is directing the Spirit of God, because it's him. Just like in that in the scripture where it says, "Are you the grower, or are we the grower?" Well, the "we" is there for a reason. Of course, Muslims would deny that, but that's what it is.
Okay. Yeah, I would say that has some kind of meaning for you.
I mean, and it's not like I'm actually coming at you, that you're not a believer. I think that you do believe, because as a Satanist, you believe in something, right? You're just believing, in my opinion, in the wrong kind of thing. Or
Yeah, but I
you're
don't
giving too
believe in
much credit.
Satan as scientific truth. I believe in Satan as myth, as a story, as mythological truth. It's a story that gives my life meaning.
Okay, so if you believe in that part, then you have to believe in the other part of the story, which is to say that you are a believer, not an unbeliever. It's just that you're putting more weight on the one side versus the other side at this point still.
Yeah, but I don't believe it has an actual existence outside of the story. Just like Harry Potter or the Marvel Batman or whoever, they're a story and they give a lot of people's lives meaning, but they don't have an actual existence outside of the story. But that doesn't mean that they don't have value. And
Right.
there are parts that, in fact, many parts of the Bible that also give my life meaning as stories. So you could say I'm a believer in the Bible and the Christian myth as well.
Right. That's what I was
But
saying.
as myth, as story, as meaning,
Okay.
not as
Let me ask
truth.
you this: how many authors are there for the Lord of the Rings or for Harry Potter?
Tolkien and what's her face, J.K. Rowling.
So one author for all those books, right?
Yeah, more or less, as far as I know.
Okay. And how many authors for the Bible?
Multiple, like tens, maybe hundreds.
Okay. And over how long
Over centuries, and thousands.
okay. And yet they all are have the same narrative, the same subject, and the same
Oh no, they
collusion.
don't. They're very diverse. Scholars have a very difficult time fitting all these pieces of the mosaic into one unified form.
Well, I mean, the Bible as we have it now, it's all based on the Yahweh of the Hebrew, the known God, all the way to Jesus Christ. Right? There's a
Yeah.
common theme, and you have all those different authors over all those thousands of years, comprising these words, these stories, these scriptures. And how come Harry Potter couldn't do something like that? You know what I mean? I'm sure someone could take the mantle from that woman and say, okay,
Well,
I'm
look
going
at
to
all
go
the
on this series of
fanfic
Harry
from
Potter.
like the Marvel universe or the Star Wars universe. They are kind of doing that. It's multiple different creators all working within the same universe off of a common narrative, but you get variations from creator to creator.
Mm-hmm. And those are all based on what was previously written for the most part. Whereas, the Bible, say Old Testament prophets, didn't necessarily have access to written scripture or going to the same church or going to the same temple and collaborating. These were all just inspired by God.
Well, it
Through the
also they had oral tradition that it was passed down, and at some point it was codified and written. And then at that point it became passed down textually. So, but they did have a tradition of transmission. It wasn't just random humans independently walking around, all being suddenly struck with the same story in their mind. It's connected by a tradition of oral and then written transmission after that. Unless you think the Bible was written all at once by Moses, like people used to think, as
no, I
one
mean the
work.
first the Torah, was given to Moses according to the Quran. So I believe
Yeah,
that.
according to the story, like you're taking your evidence for the truth of it from the story itself, but not from anything outside of the story. So it's kind of tautological.
Yeah, but if you have two different sources collaborating each other, then it's more likely and probable that it's true than not. Versus, people just saying, "Oh, Moses never existed." Well, no, the Quran says that Moses wrote the Torah or whatever.
Well, the thing I plan to talk about next time in my little series is that it doesn't have to be factually true or historically true or scientifically true to have meaning, and you seem to be placing a lot of emphasis on the historicity of it and the empirical reality of it as a basis or foundation for the truth that you derive from it. And I think you can still make a case that it has truth and meaning for people without it needing to be historically or scientifically true. Because the type of meaning it has is not invalidated by not being scientifically or historically true. So you don't need to fight so hard for that historical backing of it. The type of truth it has can stand on its own without that. But it's a mythological truth. But that is just as fundamental to humans as the scientific kind. And that's the point I keep trying to make. Scientific truth is a very particular type of truth directed at particular objects or subjects and for particular reasons. There's particular things we get out of it. But that this other type is just as valid, but it just has different reasons, and there are different things we can do with it than science. And keeping the two kind of in separate categories, I think, clears up a lot of confusion and helps us to communicate about these things more easily as humans. So what you to me, your best course of action is to emphasize the mythological, the spiritual, the social, the cultural truth that the Bible can provide, and not get caught up so much on the historical part of it.
All right.
Or even the scientific part, like with the seed germinating.
Okay, so I'm going to pretty much agree with everything you say, except that I'm going to say that the what you're calling the mythical kind of religious side, separate category, I agree with that, is a slightly better the id to take because of the foundational cracks that have been shown and the contradictions that have been shown within science at this point.
I'll go further than that. I would say even if those contradictions were not in science, that it's still a course worth taking, independent and separate from science, not because of any flaws in science itself, but because it operates in a realm that science has no power over to begin with. And so we need something there. And for thousands of years in Western culture, that something was the Bible. And so there's no reason to displace it and replace it with something else when the Bible itself has served fine for thousands and thousands of years. And it doesn't even matter if there's contradictions or sciences or not, because even if science were perfect, I still think that we would need something like the Bible for all the things that science can't do, even if it were perfect. So to tie it to science at all, to me, weakens your argument. Like the truth in the Bible should be a truth so strong on its own that it doesn't need the support of science. It doesn't need any kind of historical verification to be true, because it's a powerful spiritual truth on its own that can stand independently of science and history, because it's a spiritual truth or a mythological truth.
Well, Jesus believes in science, and even in doctors. I posted a scripture there. So the thing is, God includes everything. He's an inclusive God, which includes science. Whereas science, by its very nature, is an exclusive. Exclusive. It solves problems by the process of elimination. So it's exclusive by nature. So I pose the question: which is actually the greater ideology?
It depends on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to create a computer or AI or a quantum computer or something, a nuclear weapon, science. If you're trying to grow as an individual, if you're trying to form a community of fellow humans, if you're trying to bring meaning to your life, use the Bible or use some other source of art that gives your life meaning.
Let's do a hypothetical. If you were, say, a regular American, dude growing up in a secular America, and you never went to church, your family wasn't religious, and you end up going to college and becoming a doctor, and then you are a young practicing doctor going through the C-19, I would have a hard time believing that your foundational confidence of what you know as a medical physician wouldn't have been shaken at that point.
Why would it be shaken by this one virus? Like, I don't understand how this, which we pretty much understand now, just like we understand all the other viruses we look at and study. It's like how this one unknown virus would shake everything else that I know about science.
Well, what we know now, yeah, but back then everything was denied that should have been pursued and investigated, and everything that was pursued and investigated. And
but that's not what you're talking about is not science. If I were a doctor, a young doctor out of medical school, and I were taught anatomy and chemistry, and I was taught how certain diseases work and how to diagnose and treat them, and we have this unknown virus that shows up in 2020 that scientists are working on and studying, I don't know why that would erase all that other knowledge I got from medical school. I'm not drawing the connection between this one virus and all my past medical knowledge, how it suddenly invalidates that. All of that knowledge would still work. I would still be able to use it with my patients. I wouldn't say, oh my God, there's a new virus. I suddenly don't know how to be a doctor anymore.
I think that their confidence of what they know and their knowledge base was shaken. I think that they don't know. And
it wasn't shaken. Like all the knowledge they had before COVID still worked, and they still use it to this day. We new viruses show up all the time. If every time a new virus showed up, it erased all of the scientific knowledge, we wouldn't have science at all. That's ridiculous to think that new things show up in science constantly. It doesn't erase the body of knowledge we've built up until that new thing showed up. All it is a new virus, and it was in a category of viruses that we already did know about. It wasn't even like it was a completely brand new virus.
Right. It was a genetically modified, engineered virus, which was.
We don't know that. Yeah, that's a story, or you could say a myth. You have no evidence for that.
We definitely have evidence.
And Gateway Pundit and Alex Jones does not count as evidence.
No, I'm talking about Dr. Fauci and actual rubber meets the road testimony before Congress. And
that testimony before Congress is not science. Scientists engaging in the scientific method and studying things is science. So when we have enough scientists studying whether it was genetically engineered or not, then maybe we'll know. But right now, the freak from behind your computer, have no way of knowing that. That's just a hypothesis. That's just something you think.
That's not true, because I have to actually believe that under oath and given testimony before Congress under the threat of perjury, that Dr. Fauci
that doesn't make it science.
Funding the gain of function. He's the one directing where the funding goes for the science to occur in the first place. Okay.
But it doesn't even matter if it was engineered or occurred naturally, because neither situation makes your point that suddenly we don't know science anymore because of this one virus, that doctors suddenly don't know medicine. However the virus came to be, neither origin of it would support your point that it invalidated all of our past scientific medical knowledge.
My point isn't to say that it invalidated the science. My point is to say that it shook the confidence that people have in their doctors, and that the doctors had even in their own knowledge of science. Because what you had was the body politic saying one
But
thing and
it
then
did.
saying
I don't
another
know
thing.
any doctor
Hold
whose
on, hold on,
okay, I don't know
hold on a
any
second.
doctor whose confidence was shaken, though. That's a big claim you're making.
When they couldn't even agree on hydrochloroquine or ivermectin or anything, they were basically told what to say and what they could and couldn't say, or whatever, what had their medical license revoked or not. That is something that is going to shake your confidence as a practicing physician. I don't care who you are.
Well, it didn't. No physician I know had their confidence shaken by that. So I don't know who the doctors you talking to are. In fact, next time I go to my doctor, I might ask him, "Was your confidence shaken over COVID?" He's probably going to say, "No. I know how to treat all the other stuff I knew how to treat before."
Okay,
I don't know why. First of all, that's a psychological claim. You're making an inference of what you think is going on inside the head of every single doctor out there. So that's not even anything you can even verify. It's just a claim. But
we are
even
talking about worldview.
psychologically, I don't know why that would shake a doctor's confidence.
Because when you get conflicting and contradictory information,
Which happens all the time. All the time.
Then that worldview that is your foundation is not as
No,
strong as it could be.
Science has that built into its worldview. Science knows that it's contingent and that new contradictions happen all the time and new knowledge comes out of that all the time. Science already knows this. That's part of its worldview. So what you're saying, what you're claiming, a true scientist would say, duh, that's a normal part of science. It wouldn't make their confidence shake because they already know going into it that that's part of science.
So you're saying that they know already that they don't know, and that makes their confidence in the worldview.
Yes. Scientists know that they don't know everything. Yes.
Okay. I think I made my point.
Yes. Ask any scientist, do you think you know everything? And they're going to tell you no. Besides, if science knew everything, there would be no more science. There would be nothing else left to study. Science is a process. If suddenly we acquired all the knowledge it were possible to acquire, there would be no more reason to even do science. So science itself is a process of constantly discovering new information.
Okay, so why put your id and your foundational worldview into something like that? What would be the point of doing that and still thinking that you are a confident person throughout your life, that you are standing on solid ground?
Because it mostly works, and it's given us the modern world we have today. Computers work. Science gave us that. Medicine works. Science gave us that. Cars, airplanes work. So we have direct evidence of the benefits of science. So it's given us enough to continue to be confident in it.
Fair enough. My argument is that the foundation of Jesus Christ as the worldview and as the identity of a person is the strongest id that a person could have.
And you could be right. Because the id's not even a scientific concept, but leaving that aside, you could absolutely be right, because I don't think that's something that science can answer. So science could still be science, and it could still do its thing, and what you just said could also still be true. I don't think science is even claiming to be a substitute for whatever you're calling the id, like people to found their spiritual life on.
It being like the ego, like the ego part of what Freud would talk about. But in Matthew 24 through 27, he talks about having the foundation being, Jesus being a house built on rock as opposed to sand. And that's kind of what I'm equating this to. But after what you just said right now, I'm wondering, when you were talking about in your intro the other day or yesterday, the challenging of someone's worldview outright versus kind of conforming to another person's worldview, maybe for influence purposes or whatever. When does that factor in then, in terms of having a worldview of science?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Like if you have two different people and they have kind of a supposed opposition to one each other's worldview or value system or whatever, and you're trying to convince another person, when does that when two people who say have science as their kind of their base worldview, when does that start to crumble to where they're being exposed and start expressing mythology?
Oh, like when does science itself start to break down?
Or just when two different worldviews start to oppose each other and one starts mythologizing to justify their worldview. Like when does that occur? Say if you're a geologist versus a anthropologist.
I think it would occur anytime somebody's trying to turn a critical eye onto something mythological and trying to tease out the fact and evidence behind it and to find explanations for it.
Probably too vague of a question, actually. I probably need to come up with a better question. But
I personally wouldn't, like, if you have Jesus as your foundation or as your id, as you're saying, I wouldn't want to tear that away from somebody. Like, that's probably there for a reason, and it's probably doing a lot of good being there. So I wouldn't want to use kind of a rational scientific mindset to try to tear that away from somebody and then leave their id with nothing in its place.
Yeah, I can understand that.
I don't think that's good for a person, and I don't think you're helping somebody by trying to do that.
Right. I understand that. What I'm saying is, if it's based on that as opposed to anything else, and I mean anything else, that anything else is eventually going to be shaken, whether it's in the science medical field, whether it's in whatever, whether it's in I don't know, take your pick.
Well,
at some point it's going to be questioned and shaken, and you're going to be asking yourself, who am I, all over again.
Yeah, I think that happens. I think that's a normal part of being human. I think at each stage of your life, you're asking that question. But I think one of my points in all of this actually is that, and I think Fry's point as well, is that what he's calling this myth of freedom can't substitute for a myth of concern. What you're calling Christ and the id is the purpose of a myth of concern. That's what a myth of concern is designed to address. And that something like science is not able to take on that role. And so science is always going to fall short when it tries to become the inner or spiritual or psychological foundation of you as a person, because that's not the purpose of the myth of freedom, which in our modern form is science. That you're always going to need some kind of actual myth to build yourself and your personality around, because science is not going to provide the enough of the substance that it requires, because it takes That's not what science is. Science is a way of understanding the world. It's not a way of.
Yeah, it's a measurement.
It's not a way of becoming fully human or becoming who you are as a person. It's not a way of developing as a person. And for that, you need some kind of internal mythological story, whether it's the Christian one, whether it's the hero's journey, which is taken more from classical mythology. It's going to be some kind of story that arose within the culture that you're a part of. It's not going to be science. So people that are trying to make science be that thing at the center of their core, they're always going to be missing something, because what they need there is some kind of myth of concern. And I think people that over rely on science find themselves involuntarily filling in that space with something non-scientific anyway, whether it's psychology, like Carl Jung and the archetypes, whether it's mythology, whether it's social justice, wokeness, etc. There's going to be some non-scientific something that they're turning to that they might even think is science. But if you look at it closely, it has more of the features of myth than it does of science.
Yeah, or love, or their marriage, or something.
Yep. Love, justice, art, beauty, religion, something. But it's going to be something other than just cold, hard logic and fact.
And also, I will say that there are some religious people that are the same way about holding on to their foundation and not considering science, which is the same crime in reverse order. So, there's that
there
too.
is, and the only danger they run is the danger of colliding with actual reality. But that way of being is actually older than science itself, so it's a little more kind of primal or fundamental to being a human, and so it's a little less weird than somebody trying to do that with science alone, because people have been getting by on the way you're talking about for centuries and centuries and centuries before science came along. And so if people are still doing that in the modern world, they're not doing anything that different from what humans have always done. The only danger they run into is when the modern world or the natural world collides with that attempt to only ground themselves in religion. But as long as they can stay isolated and not have to confront actual reality too often, they can keep that going, I think, longer than somebody that just tries to be purely scientific can, without resorting to some kind of myth in the process.
Another ID, kind of worldview also comes just from the identity itself, like their ethnic group or their tribe or their country or nationality. That's another big one too for people.
Yeah, and if you look at all of those, they probably have some kind of cultural story that holds that nationality together too. So even that, there's some kind of mythological basis embedded in it.
Good point. Well, it was fun. I think I'm going to drop down now. And
okay, did you get what you came for?
I think so. I mean, I think so.
And next time I pick up this, whatever it is, maybe later this week or next week, a lot of what we talked about tonight is what Fry's going to cover. And we're going to delve specifically into the Christian myth and what kind of truth and value it has that's not science and not history, because it has a certain type of truth all its own. And so that's what we're going to look more at.
Look forward to it.
All right, freak. Take care. Right. It's fun.
Love you. Take care. Next time.
Okay. Love you too. All right. Well, that didn't go so bad. That was the big fight on the playground after school, the big battle royale of the century. And I think, yeah, not lost. I've been reading them. You ought to collect it and put it somewhere. I have a few suggestions where. No, you're this. Actually, I prefer this not loss than the woke political brain rotted not loss. 3 o'clock high. Yeah. Uh, no, that was a good discussion, Freak. It keeps me on my toes. I hope it did the same for you. I like I said, being challenged. It might not seem like it all the time, but it does help me. I do appreciate it. So keep it coming. It helps me to understand more of my own positions and what I'm trying to say. Well, if just like with Cool Joe, if this is cool not loss, keep being this. That the political not laws is so derivative. I can find that person anywhere. The this kind of stuff I can only find from not laws. Well, then why are you wasting your time being this complete tool online when you could be this? Yeah, I like the goof. I think this is a better look for you. And remember, this is a place where people can come and be themselves. So if this is the real you, this is what you should bring. So there, that's my challenge to you. All right, I feel like that was a full episode. I'm gonna wind it down and wrap it up and get the hell out of hell. Um, Joe and I will be out tomorrow talking about straight men. So all of you straight men can show up and hear about yourselves. Not that we get a lot of gays. I was thinking about that the other day. For somebody that's gay, I sure don't get a lot of gays that come here. Like they're not like, oh, he's one of us. Let's go support our brother, or he's part of our community. And I don't even get a lot of Satanists. Every now and then I get a few, but like my people, or what's supposed to be my people, are not showing up here. What I do get is a lot of straight men, a lot of Christians, and this is the important part, a whole lot of Spurgs, which are my people. So that tells me that neurodivergent men, that's the group I set out to find. That's the group I'm trying to help the most. And that is the group that's showing up here. So that is my community. It's not the gays. It's not even the Satanist. It's the Spurgs, the men, Christian, straight, whatever. That's what's showing up. And that's what I'm most relating to. And apparently that's what's most relating to me. I know this place is just overrun with homos. Just fairies everywhere. Nah, we'll see what happens tomorrow. I don't know what the topic is, so it'll be a surprise for me too. All right, take care, everybody. Have a good evening, and we'll be out tomorrow. That's a good point. Although sometimes the arguments themselves, the argumentation style can be kind of spurgy. I could think of a few names, but I'll be tactful for once. All right, take care, everybody. I'm going to go get some rest and get ready for my thing tomorrow, and then Joe and I will be out later tomorrow afternoon. Let's see, how do I do this? All right. Take care. Peace out, y'all. Go in peace and love and justice and beauty and truth and all that good stuff. And find your myth. We all need one. All right, take care.